Look closely at the map. While everyone is watching the explosions in Ukraine, the largest land grab in modern history is happening right now, behind Vladimir Putin's back. The Russian Empire is shrinking, not in the West, but in the East. Intelligence reports confirm that China and North Korea are quietly moving into the vacuum left by the Kremlin's obsession with Kyiv. Troops, workers, and businesses are crossing the border, and they aren't planning to leave. Putin thinks he is fighting for historical Russia in Donbass. But in reality, he is selling the actual Russia to Beijing just to stay afloat. This is the story of the silent invasion that will change the world map forever. Welcome back to MrWARLOG. We often talk about the front door of the war, the tanks in Donetsk, the drones in Moscow. But today, we are going to kick open the back door. The Kremlin has emptied its eastern military bases. The S-400s that guarded the skies over Vladivostok? They are burning in Crimea. The elite tank divisions that watched the Chinese border? They are stuck in the mud near Pokrovsk. Russia is naked in the east, and nature abhors a vacuum. Defense UA and Ukrainian intelligence, SZR, were the first to sound the alarm. They claim that Moscow is effectively trading land for war support. To get artillery shells from Kim Jong-un and economic lifelines from Xi Jinping, Putin is paying the ultimate price: sovereignty. Before we analyze how China is reclaiming its lost territories without firing a shot, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. This is the geopolitical shift of the century. To understand this, you have to think like a Chinese historian, not a Russian propagandist. In Russia, they call it the Far East. In China, they call it Outer Manchuria. Beijing has never forgotten the unequal treaties of the 19th century, when a weak China was forced to give up this massive, resource-rich land to the Russian czars. For 160 years, it was a quiet grudge. But now? The Telegraph reports that China is taking back its backyard. It's not an invasion with tanks, it's an invasion with osmosis. Millions of hectares of land are being leased to Chinese agricultural companies. Russian cities like Blagoveshchensk are becoming economic suburbs of Chinese metropolises across the river. In these cities, the signs are in Chinese. The currency is the yuan, and the future is Beijing. The Russian population is shrinking, dying, or leaving for the war. The Chinese population is growing. This is what experts call soft annexation. But if China is the economic predator, North Korea is the scavenger. We know about the artillery shells, but the intelligence reports point to something much more permanent. Ukrainian intelligence suggests that Pyongyang is improving its logistical and military mobility near the border. What does that mean in plain English? It means North Korea is setting up shop in Russia. Tens of thousands of North Korean workers are being sent to logging camps and construction sites in the vast, empty spaces of Siberia. They provide cheap labor that Russia desperately needs because its own men are dead or at the front. But there is a darker theory. Are these just workers? Or are they a ghost garrison to protect the supply lines? Putin has allowed a rogue state to establish a foothold on Russian soil. Once they are in, they don't leave. You might ask, why would Putin allow this? The answer is simple and terrifying. He is broke. The Bell, a highly respected independent outlet, has just confirmed that Russia has started selling its gold reserves to plug the massive holes in the budget. This is the desperate act of a dying economy. When you sell the family gold, you know the end is near. But who has the cash to buy it? China. China is buying Russian gold, oil, and gas at rock-bottom prices. In exchange, they are giving Russia the technological life support it needs to keep the war going. But this support comes with strings attached. Thick steel strings. Russia has become a vassal state. Putin cannot make a single major move in the east without checking with Xi Jinping first. The Kremlin's independence is an illusion. The real capital of the Russian economy is no longer Moscow, it is Beijing. And the Russian people, they are starting to notice. Charter 97 reports that even Russian nationalists and military bloggers are freaking out. For years, they screamed about NATO expansion. Now they look east and see their own cities turning Chinese. They realize the irony. Putin sent their sons to die in Ukraine to protect Russian speakers, while the actual Russian land in the east is being quietly absorbed by a foreign power. It is the ultimate betrayal. The patriot in the Kremlin is the one giving away the motherland. But is China a loyal ally? Absolutely not. East Asia Forum provides a brilliant analysis of Beijing's strategy. It is a cautious balance. China is not helping Russia to win, it is helping Russia to not lose too quickly. Why? Because a weak, dependent Russia is the perfect neighbor. A Russia that is desperate sells cheap oil. A Russia that is isolated votes with China at the UN. A Russia that is fighting NATO distracts the US from Taiwan. Xi Jinping is playing the long game. He doesn't need to invade Siberia with tanks. He just needs to wait until Russia is so weak that it falls into his lap like a ripe apple. This shift isn't just Russia's problem. It's an Asian crisis. Japan and South Korea are watching this with horror. They see Russia not as a counterweight, but as a failed state leaking power to China and North Korea. This vacuum is dangerous. It is speeding up the remilitarization of Japan. It is pushing South Korea closer to nuclear options. Putin's weakness has destabilized the entire Pacific Rim. If the land grab wasn't enough, let's look at the energy trap. This is where the relationship stops being a partnership and starts looking like a hostage situation. We need to talk about the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. For years, Putin has been begging Beijing to sign the deal for this massive gas pipeline. He needs it desperately to replace the European market he lost. But the Financial Times reports that Xi Jinping is stalling. He is ghosting Putin. Why? Because China knows Russia has nowhere else to go. Beijing is demanding a price for the gas that is basically the same as Russia's domestic subsidized price. In business terms, they are asking Russia to sell its most valuable resource at almost zero profit. This is humiliation. Putin, the self-proclaimed energy czar who tried to freeze Europe, is now being squeezed by his best friend until his eyes pop out. China is effectively saying, "We will take your gas, but only on terms that make you our resource colony." And how is Russia getting paid for this cheap resources? Not in dollars, not in euros, but in yuan. Reuters has exposed a massive crisis in the Russian banking sector. Even though they are allies, major Chinese banks are blocking payments from Russia because they are terrified of Western secondary sanctions. Imagine the irony. Russia sold its sovereignty to escape the dollar, only to find itself trapped in a currency, the yuan, that it can't even freely use. Russian companies are now reporting delays of up to 6 months to get paid for their goods. The Kremlin has traded the tyranny of the dollar for the dungeon of the yuan, and the dungeon keeper in Beijing is not sharing the keys. Walk down the street in Moscow or Vladivostok today, and you will see the physical proof of this colonization. The Moscow Times reports a staggering statistic. Chinese car brands now account for 92% of the growth in the Russian auto market. The legendary Russian and Western car industry is dead. It has been replaced by Chinese imports. But here is the catch. Russia isn't manufacturing these cars. It is assembling kits sent from China. The value is added in Beijing, not Tolyatti. This isn't import substitution. This is industrial suicide. Russia is forgetting how to make things. It is becoming a giant gas station with Chinese management. The Russian engineer is being replaced by a Chinese manual. But the most dangerous concession is happening on the roof of the world, the Arctic. For decades, the Arctic was Russia's holy grail. They guarded it jealously. They planted flags on the seafloor. They saw the Northern Sea Route as their exclusive property. Now? The Barents Observer reports that a desperate Russia has opened its Arctic ports to China. They are inviting Chinese companies to build the infrastructure, run the logistics, and mine the resources. China calls itself a near-Arctic state, even though it isn't. Putin, too weak to develop the region alone and sanctioned by the West, has no choice but to let the dragon into the ice. This is a strategic catastrophe. The Arctic is the future of global shipping and resources. By letting China in, Russia is giving away the keys to its future prosperity. Finally, let's look at the human element of this alliance. The North Korean workers we mentioned? It is not just a few construction crews. Human rights watchers and NK News warn that these deployments are essentially state-sponsored slavery. These workers don't get paid. Their salaries go directly to Kim Jong-un's nuclear program. Russia is becoming the host for a new Gulag archipelago, staffed by foreign slaves, to extract resources to sell to China, to buy weapons to destroy Ukraine. It is a circle of misery that degrades everyone involved. And what about the Russian citizens in the Far East? They feel abandoned. They see their government investing billions in Donbass and Crimea, places that are war zones, while their own roads crumble and their jobs are taken by cheaper labor or Chinese automation. We have talked about oil and gas, but there is a resource more valuable than both that China is thirsty for: water. Look at Lake Baikal. It holds 20% of the world's unfrozen fresh water. For Russians, it is sacred. For Beijing, it is a reservoir. The Moscow Times has reported on local protests against Chinese bottling plants siphoning water from Baikal. While Russian soldiers fight for the Donbass wasteland, Chinese companies are quietly securing the rights to Russia's liquid gold. Climate change is drying up northern China. They need water. Russia has it. And with Putin weak and bankrupt, analysts predict that water leases will be the next concession. Russia is not just selling its energy, it is selling its lifeblood. And how does Russia communicate? The West pulled the plug on Ericsson and Nokia. Who filled the void? Huawei. Carnegie Endowment experts warn that Russia has traded Western surveillance for Chinese control. By building its 5G network and internet infrastructure on Chinese tech, Moscow has given Beijing a backdoor into every conversation, every bank transaction, and every military order sent over the network. This is the digital leash. If Xi Jinping decides to turn off the internet in Russia tomorrow, he can. Putin has handed the keys to his nation's nervous system to a foreign power. Finally, the ultimate humiliation for the Russian army: technology theft. For decades, Russia was the teacher and China was the student. Russia sold them engines and jets. China copied them. Now the roles have reversed. While Russia is begging for low-tech shells from North Korea, China has surpassed Russia in drone tech, stealth fighters, and naval shipbuilding. Reports suggest that China is no longer interested in buying Russian weapons. They are interested in buying Russian scientists. With the ruble collapsing, Chinese defense firms are headhunting top Russian talent to work in Chengdu and Shenyang. Russia is being stripped of its intellectual property. The junior partner is now stripping the senior partner for parts. So let's step back and look at the horrifying picture we have painted. In the West, Russia is burning its army and economy in a war of attrition. In the East, it is selling its land, its energy, and its future to China and North Korea. Vladimir Putin promised to make Russia great again. Instead, he has turned it into the world's largest resource colony. He is the junior partner in an alliance where he has no voice. The silent invasion is not coming with guns. It is coming with contracts, pipelines, and debt. And when the dust settles in Ukraine, regardless of who wins the battles, the war for Russia's future has already been lost. The winner is not Moscow. It is Beijing. What do you think? Is Russia destined to become a vassal state of China? Can Putin ever reverse this dependency? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this deep dive geopolitical analysis valuable, hit the like button and subscribe to MrWARLOG. We bring you the truth from the edge of the New World Order. I am Charlie. Thanks for watching.